Ladies and gentlemen, the time being 7 o'clock.
Read between the lines.
Meeting of
Time?
extraordinary council meeting of the 27th of March 2018. First of all, in the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given. The area is deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. First of all, we have 1.1, which is apologies for absence.
From Councillor Nugent and Councillor Prevatira, and Councillor Prevatira has put in a written request for leave of absence.
Seconder?
Yep.
All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at a council meeting, you agree to being live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at the council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others, use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. The will be made for administrative purposes and will be available to all councillors. Look, asking councillors for permission for Channel 9 and the CWD later on.
Sorry, that's right.
Moving it before you know what
Been
it
in front
is.
of myself, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Donate all your...
Yep, absolutely.
Later on in the proceedings, want to take some photos of the current council, and I don't mind, and perhaps may use some of you after the meeting. Someone move that? Seconder? All in favour? Yes, thanks. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of this land. I'd also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflict of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting tonight? Have a speaker, but just before we do, Brett, I have to inform you that Val Gregory, she played golf on Saturday and unfortunately late on Saturday died of an aneurysm. So can I ask the staff if they'd get something off immediately tomorrow to Dennis Gregory? As you know, Dennis has been incredibly involved with the classic car feature here in Orange for many, many years, but Val Gregory's been involved for decades. In fact, still played hockey in the veteran women's hockey. Very, very involved with the women's hockey and a number of other things. So I think I'd like to have a minute's silence for Val Gregory because her and her are very important parts of our community. Val Gregory.
Mr Mayor, just also she was very much part of the 8-day games and a founding, still a committee member as well up to the last game. So all the tributes that were on social media from the 8 days. She touched a lot of it.
Yeah. Look, we have one speaker tonight, and that is Mr. Ewan Greer. Thanks, Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. Good evening, councillors and members of our Orange community. Councillors, thank you again for the opportunity to speak before you. I'm, of course, very interested in the DA for the old Dalton stores by Myers. 18 months ago, we thought that the future of that store had been assured when a DA was approved by the then council for its renovation and reuse as a retail centre. Some structural changes were to be made, but most of the external and internal fabric of the building was to be retained. I was very pleased to support the DA before the council. The stores and the commercial success of the Dalton brothers were responsible for the development of Orange as it is today. When it was made public last year that a new DA was to be submitted because structural deficiencies had been found within the building, I'm afraid my cynicism came to the fore. Demolition of most of the building, this is what the developer intended all along, or was it? I was reluctant to accept the structural engineer's report on the basis of pays the piper, calls the tune, or you don't commission a report unless you know what's going to be in it.
Mr. Greer, look, I just remind you to be fairly careful of.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. When the DA was released for public comment, I found that Council had commissioned its own report from structural engineers. And this did confirm that the fabric was structurally unsound, but it also stated the opinion that the building could be saved. However, I formed the view that this would be at a great expense, and that in turn would probably make the project economically unviable, in which case the applicants could just walk away and let the building fall down. In the end, I was reluctantly dragged to the conclusion that demolition of much of the building was inevitable if anything at all of the heritage fabric was to be saved. The applicants have said that they are committed to saving the Summer Street and Post Office Lane facades. The Dalton stores form the western end of a trio of Victorian buildings. There's the Palmer building, then the Post Office, and then of course the Dalton store. Together they form a very large section of Summer Street. Loss of any one of them would seriously compromise the heritage streetscape. To me, it thus becomes a matter of saving as much as possible of the heritage significant face and fittings of the Dalton stores. And I emphasise fittings as well. I believe that the staff report in front of you for determination tonight does just that. It has been a very complex, difficult and long process involving much negotiation and hard work by both the council's planning staff and the applicant to reach this stage. Closure of Myer has had a significant impact on Orange. It's not a good look for visitors or residents. It's a large building unused in the centre of our main street. The city has also suffered economically, not just through the loss of the staff positions at Myer, but by the reduced trade of businesses in the remainder of the city centre. And that comes about through the lack of pedestrian thoroughfare from Summer Street to what remains of active of the city centre. However, these losses cannot be corrected at the expense of lost heritage. I have read the staff report very carefully and have come to the conclusion that the recommended approval, subject to all the attached conditions, is the best compromise between the competing forces of 21st century retail economics, community expectations, and heritage conservation. And as a result of that, I therefore urge you to accept the expert advice of our staff and approve the DA and all its conditions as recommended. Councillors, thank you for your attention and your time.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. We'll move into we'll move into 2.1, which is development application DA 242 stroke.
Move the application, move the instrument of
Second,
approval.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Look, can we just clarify too that that's with the extra
New
conditions you
conditions
would
on
have
the
got?
pulleys and the
The late item one, yeah.
This
pulleys
is
and
laid on.
staircase. Yep.
Happy with that?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, all in favour? Sorry.
Gus, you were talking about 2.1 that
Yeah, well, I asked for a mover and a seconder, and
got that.
I one right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just wondered with the mover and the seconder, consider making an amendment to, if you have a look at the old building when we did the inspection onto in item 27 here in the approval, there's a tessellated tile area right at the very entrance, which is only a small area, two marble-like columns either side. And the tessellated area is very similar to the entrance to Crow Patrick. It's very similar to the QBB building in Sydney, and it's an important design part of the original structure there. It's not, I don't think it's a matter of massive cost, whatever the case may be, but I'm just wondering whether they consider putting that in the actual, to the item number 27 as well, if they're happy with that.
Just asked, Director.
Mr. Chair, we can add that as a wording to the condition,
Everyone happy with that?
that those tiles
I just asked a
be
question, Mr. Mayor.
reused or kept.
Councillor
Going
Weed's
to
got a
expect
question.
the developer to have to match the colours and not move. Like, that can be an expensive exercise, or by the way, but we're going to try and match what's there.
I think what we might do, is if we could add to the condition, Mr. Johnson, which condition might be appropriate for the addition of a sentence that says the tessellated tiles should be reused or kept?
Yep.
And I suggest that would cover it, but I think we need this to come back as quickly as we possibly can. So approval tonight with that inclusion, and if
Mr. Chair, I believe you can have the approval, and I think we've got enough wording. We amend the condition as long as Councillor Duffy thinks happy with the tiles being saved. I'd rather do it tonight than come back with a condition. So I'm proposing condition 27 be amended to include a sentence like that the tessellated tiles be investigated further and reused and kept where possible.
Mover and seconder happy
I'm
with
happy with that, Mr Mayor, as long as
Is
it
it?
doesn't hold up.
No.
Where possible is very important, I think.
I want to make a comment too. And I'm extremely pleased with the staff and the developer for the way they've worked. But I also think I want to acknowledge the work done by a local resident who's a historian and all those type of things as well, is Robbie Bartlett. I think he's done an exceptional good job with giving us some insight into the history of the building and all those type of things as well. So I don't think it should go unnoticed. And I do take that our city is suffering from the lack of someone being in that building.
All in favour?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sorry.
Hurry tonight.
Well, you didn't look as though you were moving. I thought you were comatose.
Well, Mr. Mayor, whilst I will be supporting the recommendation, I think this is so important that I'd like to make a few comments, if I might.
You may. A comment, or you're speaking for?
Well, a lot.
Against?
I'm speaking for the motion.
Okay.
I just will take a few comments out of the very extensive report that I think highlights how important this construction or this development is to the future of Orange. Part of it says this development application is particularly complex owing to the findings presented by the applicant's structural engineering consultant. The high level of heritage significance ascribed to the subject building and the economic impacts that occur within the CBD attributed to the large empty retail space in one of the most important commercial properties within the city from both a retailing perspective and pedestrian movements perspective. And that's been highlighted. I know a lot of us have spoken to retailers in the city centre and how much their business has dropped whilst this building remains as it is today. And the report on page 16 goes on, at this point council engaged the services of the New South Wales Public Works Advisory, or the PWA, to act as council's structural engineering experts. Part of their recommendations, there was a workshop that was held. Following the workshop with the proponents' consultants, PWA prepared a final report which demonstrated that there would be other options available to the proponent in lieu of the extensive demolition that was sought. The PWA report also suggests that their option could be carried out in a staged arrangement where the rear portion of the development site be redeveloped quickly and the anchor tenants could occupy those tenancies as a stage one.
Councillor Turner, perhaps suggest there's no need to read out the report. I assume that all the councillors have read the report, or am I wrong?
I have the right to stand on my feet and
you can stand on your feet.
I believe, Mr. Mayor, are important issues.
No, well, I take offence at having it read out to me if something that I've already read.
Oh, and I'm very pleased that you've read it all.
I
sure
have.
Councillors need reminding of some of the most important aspects. If I may continue, or are you going to sit me down?
Continue, but I'd ask that you don't read the report out to us.
I'll read the report, bits that I would like to point out that are important. I'm sorry. This bit is not written down, right? Following my comments about the staged development, just imagine prospective tenants jumping at the chance to lease a shop unit leading to nowhere, because stage one hasn't even been started, not knowing when the pedestrian mall would open into Summer Street. An indication that PWA have no experience in retail shopping, what attracts customers, and as I said, we've only got to see the drop in the number of people going through the city centre because of the closure of the old Myer. It goes on to say that the PWA concept does not satisfy any of the three key development criteria. It goes on to say that the current PWA proposal is incapable of being certified to comply with all the relevant codes and Australian standards, of which the developers, I'm assuming, are compliant with. It goes on to say the stage construction sequence proposal is fundamentally flawed as the stabilisation of facades is required prior to the redevelopment of the remainder of the site. It goes on and talks about the fragility of the timber floor, which can't have development on top because of the fragility, and those that have inspected the site some months ago will realise how fragile the timber was and how it's up and down and rotted in certain space, etc., etc. The existing roof does not comply with relevant Australian standards or the BCA. The developers are aware of all these. Apparently the PWA are not, and it's great to issue guidelines, but not very great when you're ignorant of some of the complications. So, if I can wrap it up, I will be supporting the recommendation. However, I believe the Heritage Advisor's report and the recommendations have significant shortcomings and potential costings that may deny the development's plans to create a modern shopping complex that is financially viable, will attract progressive tenants, and most importantly will have customers walking through the front entrance and saying, wow, isn't this terrific? I believe what we have here at the moment, whilst I'll be supporting it tonight, is a fragmentation of the heritage area and a modern approach that the developers have. I'm afraid it will be, if it is carried out as we are going to support tonight, it will not be a modern shopping arcade. It will not be a heritage building. It will be, I believe, a somewhat of a compromise.
Councillor Turner, Councillor Maletta.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'll be supporting the recommendation. Also encouraging to see the council working collaboratively with the developer to get an outcome with regards to this building. The question of the council is are the council contributing to the expense of maintaining the historical significance of the building?
Through Mr Chair, no.
The reason I ask the question is because we are expecting a lot of the developer to maintain some of this significant history of the Daltons, and I totally agree with that. But if I'm a businessman, I'm asking council to work collaboratively with me they're maintaining the history of the building, and we're asking for these little things like tiles, stuff like that. Cumulative expenses, I guess.
And I have one supplementary. We are contributing something, and that's the long-term lease of Post Office Lane, which gives them the opportunity to have two tenancies. So it could be argued that that is a contribution of sorts, that the city's giving up half of Post Office Lane.
Thank you.
Councillor Munro.
Yeah, councillors, I don't think we're expecting a lot. We expect to try as hard as we can with every ounce of effort we can put into it to find a resolution to a problem. Old buildings are a problem all over the world. They wanted to pull down the Queen Victoria building once. Imagine if they had have. This is a compromise. It's a good thing. I fully support the recommendation. But, you know, you've got to fought for proper diligence as far as heritage and the rest of it. And it is a compromise. It will be a good shopping place. It will be successful. Higher rents. It will be a good return for the purchaser of this building. Purchased it full well of its significance. And I'm just so pleased to see that there's not a great battle to try and. We've got to bring economics to town. We've got to bring investors to town. This is one way we do it and achieve something for everybody.
Just a question to Councillor Munro for you, Mr Mayor. Higher rents you're talking about. What do you mean by that?
Can I just hold you there? That's got nothing really to do with the debate. It's irrelevant to it.
Point of order, Mr Chairman. Point of order. planning is not about, to the director question, planning is about planning matters. It's not about profit and loss or how much it's going to cost the developer or how much it's going to cost the council.
Thanks, Councillor
I think we should
Duffy.
stick to the actual things.
Very good, I've just done that. Right.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll the recommendation, but I have a question. So we seem to have a solution here that balances and respects the heritage, acknowledges the commercial needs, but also the social impact of having the big empty building in our CBD. My question is we seem to have a lot of people in the community concerned about the loss of heritage. Who takes responsibility for and what methods will be used for the informations which protect those heritage aspects?
Easy, Council. Council. I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I support it totally. It's been a long process, but it's gone through the proper due diligence. And I was on that inspection inside and seen the shortcomings inside with the building. But I think the point that we've arrived at, I think, is a win-win for everybody. Just remind you of one building in Orange that had a fair bit of controversy. It was Ophir Lodge. Ophir Lodge, have a look at the front of the building, the facade. It looks fantastic. It's probably one of the most modern buildings inside in Orange as a boutique. Think of the Victoria building in Sydney. Maintains the outside facade, but very, very modern shops inside and toilets and places where you can eat. And the last one is a McDonald's in George Street in Sydney. Maintained the facade of the outside of the building and inside. No different to any McDonald's here in Russia, the United States or anywhere, and it made no difference the amount of people that come in and go out of the store. So I think this would look great, and I concur with what Councillor Duffy said. Inside there, I think it was great work done by Robert Bartlett, who bred here in Orange, who own time got all the photos together and came up with a suggestion of the front of the building. Makes it look very, very attractive and I think quite modern. And I think that all goes. I hope a whole heap of retailers going in there and that people are going into the retail stores to buy things, perhaps not what they were doing towards the end of the Myer building there, which was it was a convenient shortcut through to the other shops. Why Myer closed.
Quickly, Mr Mayor, and I know that we need to put this through. The fact of the matter is I think the way we've got to look at this is vital for development and wealth of this community that be addressed. I think, Council, one of the things I said to you, Mr Mayor, was the most important issues of the Myer building. Certainly one of great importance for the community. The fact is, I think that we need to look, and if you look through the report and you look through those old photographs, there's been an evolution over 140, 50, and I think that's the way we look at it. Now, this is part of the evolution. And tasteful style that is spirit of the original building. So I think it's a great compromise. I know this hasn't come easy. We sit back and we look at it by all the parties.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Other speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Aye. Unanimous. 2.2 is application DA 303/2017, lots 201 and 808 Astle Drive and 12A 363 Phillip Street.
The recommendation.
Have a mover.
Second it.
Seconder, Councillor Mano. I think it was Councillor Taylor moved it, wasn't it? Yeah, Councillor Taylor, sorry. Speakers.
Mr Mayor, I'll be supporting your recommendation, but I just have a couple of questions with regards to the facility itself. Through the technical director, are you able to tell us how long before the operation will be up and running or operational?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I'm not specifically, but this sort of setting up this sort of operation, not complex. Mr. Greenham, I would think this is a 3 to 4 month effort to operation.
How long, sorry?
That'd be a reasonable period.
3 to 4 months.
Thank you. So, I get my understanding correct. Once this facility is up and operational, will this DA phase out the operations currently being undertaken at Spring Terrace? If so, when can we expect this to occur?
Mr. Johnson might answer that question. It will certainly back up those operations.
My understanding is that although the applicant has EPA approval or a licence out there, subject to council approval also, or council has the consent authority to revoke the activity should they wish to do so. Is that correct? Or
I can.
no, I understand that, but what I'm curious, what I'm asking, that if this facility gets up and running, which we're all going to support, I hope, what is going to happen to the site there? My understanding is that the activity which is occurring at the moment, substances into the soil, things like that. As we all know, there's a water catchment area located underneath the land out there. So what I want to know is
The director.
yes, sorry. Yeah. Once this is up and running, will it supersede the other one? Because obviously, once this facility takes place at Astor Drive, it'll be regulated, whereas as it stands at the moment, one out of town is self-regulated.
Well, Mr. Chair, the one out of town is regulated by the consent plus the EPA licence. That's the controls over there. Look, anecdotally, I can tell you that having spoken to the applicant and his consultants up the back here, may wish to speak to answer your question, that yes, the intention is that a lot of those operations would go to Astor Drive. Makes sense. Why would you invest? So I would think so. But, yeah,
We can follow that up.
Force the issue.
Ask the question, but we can't. Thanks,
Thank you.
Councillor Munro.
Well, Mr Mayor, we've all been very worried for a long time about Spring Hill and the pollution potential of that site. I think it's very important that we have a discussion or at least a whatever we can do to try and get that to supersede this, because that to supersede the other way around, that we have no more contaminants put out there at all, and there's no chance of them, even if they're the nature of the contaminant that's out there may not be terribly harmful. It's about protecting our environment.
Councillor Munro,
First
can I just help you a little bit here?
Yep.
Making the comment that there's contaminants, you're saying that there's contaminants. Now, you don't know that, and we don't know that. I'd be very careful in making that comment. Just advising, but you can if you wish.
I acknowledge that, and so it's about the perception of that by the public, and I think that's what we're here to do, is to speak for the public. So I'd like something possible to be asked of the applicant to give us some pledge or understanding, please.
Yep.
I'll do that.
Said to Councillor Mileto, we will actually speak with the applicant. All we can do is hope. Okay, no other speakers, so I'm going to move the motion. All in favour? Show of hands, please. Against? Unanimous.
Move it, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a comment
Emily?
about ST 106, and the very last comment there on the dot point on that is that if a suitable reason for not given for council will enter the property and the reason pass it across. What happened to the court process? Do we have to go to court to obtain that access to do that, or the case?
No, I can answer that one for you. Under the new Biosecurity Act and your biosecurity obligations, no.
So
It was
that's all been wiped
under
out.
the new Biosecurity Act with weeds and pest animals, so forth. That's why it's been rewritten through the regulations. Try and get around that.
Well, my question to the director then is,
So you better make sure you control your weeds.
my question to the director then is, if a farmer goes out and sprays his St John's wort, does half of it, and we say, hey, you should have done the rest of it, are we going to do the other, or is there a
No.
negotiation process?
Under the biosecurity obligation, they have to show they've got a management plan to control that weed, and usually with control of certain weeds, it'll be over a period of time. So, say, for instance, the Radiata tussock or St John's wort, the hard to get perennial weeds. If they show that they've got a management plan and they're trying to control the seed bank, going to decrease, have a barrier around spread of seed, that will be monitored. And if they don't do that, one of the steps that can be taken is that they send someone in to spray it, and they get a bill.
I was only interested, Mr. Chairman, because I see Councillor Turner on his footpath track up and down the mountain on the Rambler Drive, and I do notice that there's a hell of a lot of blackberries, a hell of a lot of St John's wort, and there's all these things there. And they've been there for a number of years, so I just wonder whether...
Yeah, look, just the other thing with weeds, and I think it's very, very important, it's tenure neutral under the new Biosecurity Act, which means councils, Crown land owners, state forests, state water, they've got different names and all that now, and all government departments, national parks and wildlife, ocean shores, right through to farmers and folk that live in town, all have the same biosecurity obligation for the control of pest animals and weeds. All right. All in favour of the recommendation that's on the 3/4 of the way down, page 275. All in favour? Aye. Don't need against. Thank you. 2.4 is the relocation of the Community Information and Services Centre to the Hack Centre and renaming of the Hack Centre.
Second it,
Mover
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Taylor. Seconder, Councillor McRae. Speakers for or against? Councillor McRae.
I'd like to ask a question relevant to, are there any concerns regarding any impacts on community groups which use in the Kite Street building, any losses or any benefits to them in regards to changing the use of the building?
Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Essentially, the main purpose of the building is to manage staff that are in there. So most of those services. I suppose the only they'll still be able to do that at the. What it will do though is it will bring. On occasion, we've had people. Is your question in short.
I think on looking at it too, maybe just more easily accessible to thinking about parking, in particular around the street. If you think about in Kite Street there, it's a horror stretch along there. Park at any time to find a park. School and the amount of traffic goes down there, and of course the other access is through the car park that's behind it, but take everything into account, I think it's going to be easier to access it. And I think the building and the meeting rooms there and the nice little outdoor area when we have summer weather, anyhow, and spring weather. I've been to a number of activities and I have activities outside or cup of tea, or I hope it'll work. I think it's better having all in one place. All in favour?
Aye.
Thanks. Look, we move into, look, just what we do move in, while we've got the press here. Got fantastic news today. I'm sure the General Manager would have got this too. It's to all mayors, councillors and general managers. I'm not sure if I have not got a copy. I just made it before I got here. That the Minister's announcing today a support package of up to 47 million to help local government and industry. This is with the waste levy country. Government's package includes 9.5 million allocation for industry and local government to co-invest in infrastructure projects to possibly look at other ways of your recyclable materials. Comment is made in here that it's been followed up by Councillor Linda Scott, who's the President of local government. I thought that perhaps some of the money they're collecting from the waste levy going into consolidated revenue would be used to support councillors with. And I didn't know that in light of China's implementation, it's called the National Sword Policy in China. Green sword, is it? We've been given the green sword, China, but there is going to be some money around, and there'll be a bit more come out on that. Closed meeting. The General Manager will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council. No written submission. I will extend an invitation to any member of the public present at the meeting to make a representation to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item.
Chairman, I'd like to move that, or not so much move, that I can't see why 3.2 should be enclosed. It's only a procedure of the process of Council meeting its obligation as a statutory requirement of the Local Government Act to the process of a general manager's contract. It doesn't matter who the general manager is. It's only the process. It's got nothing to do with how good, how bad, how exceptional, whatever the case may be. It's just about the process of dealing with the actual, how we handle it.
I agree with.
Look, thank you for having the meeting tonight. I'll get legal opinion on that tomorrow from LGA. I know I'm not a lawyer.
Or it might be a bit late, Mr. Chairman, but I'll accept that.
Well, I think it's in closed meeting as far as we're concerned. So in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following businesses of kind as referred to in Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act, should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and public. 3.1 will be the acquisition of land for the Southern Feeder Road. The reason for confidentiality of this one is these items are classified as confidential under the provisions of Section 10A2C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting the 3.2 General Managers and the Director of Corporate and Commercial Services appointment. These items classified as confidential under the provisions of Sections 10A, 2A, personal matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors.
Comment on that, Mr. Chairman. You're going to come back with a